Lilliana Mason, Uncivil Agreement, How Politics Became Our Identity. Do you ever wonder why American politics are rife with contention and divisiveness? Uncivil Agreement, How Politics Became Our Identity unravels this mystery by exploring the deep-rooted cultural and social factors that have resulted in the growing polarization of American society. Author Lilliana Mason delves into studies that show a significant shift towards aligning with either Republican or Democratic parties, on the basis of social identities rather than policies. The book prompts readers to rethink the nature of political affiliations and the roles they play in shaping our understanding of the world and one another.
The Robbers Cave Experiment and Social Polarization. In 1954, social psychologist Muzaffar Sharif conducted the Robbers Cave experiment, which showed that group membership can lead to intense preference for the in-group and distortion of reality towards the out-group. The experiment proved that while group membership protects individuals, it can cause reactivity and distortions. Since the civil rights movement, social identities have caused Americans to align with either the Republican or Democratic Party. This has led to more homogeneous parties and decreased openness to cooperation and compromise with the other party. Group attachments favoring the in-group are embedded in brain chemistry, causing people to rationalize their biases based on feelings rather than objective truth. Social polarization magnifies in-group and out-group differences, making it difficult to correct erroneous beliefs about the adversary. This has a negative impact on governance. Multiple identities playing for the same team can lead to a deep social and cultural divide, which can be detrimental to society. The power of social identity in American politics. Recent research shows that political polarization in America is less about policy disagreements and more about social identity. Republicans and Democrats now hate each other not just for their ideologies but for who they are as people. The folk theory of democracy suggests that people choose parties that align with their social identity and adjust their positions accordingly, rather than choosing a party based on their individual beliefs. This separation of ideological affiliation from policy preferences has deepened the divide between the two parties. It has become more important to have a shared identity within a political party than to have shared values or beliefs. The election of Donald Trump, according to the research, is a result of this deepening divide along partisan lines. Partisanship and the importance of social identity. In a healthy society, cross-cutting cleavages between social identity and political party are essential to reduce conflict and improve communication. However, lack of civic engagement in the 1960s and 1970s led people to congregate only with like-minded groups, reinforcing the connection between social identity and party identity. The civil rights movement intensified conservatism within the Republican Party and liberalism within the Democratic Party. This trend continued into the 1990s when race emerged as the strongest indicator of party affiliation. Partisanship can now be thought of as a mega-identity, with all the psychological and behavioral magnifications that implies. Media also became more partisan, and cultural differences intensified, leading to a feeling of social ties to one's political party. By 2000, Republicans were twice as likely to feel socially connected to their ideological group compared to Democrats. As a result, cooperation and compromise required by democracy grow less attainable as partisan isolation and conflict increase. The rise of partisan voting. Partisan voting has been on the rise for decades, with only a small portion of the electorate evaluating policy and voting accordingly. The two major parties increasingly reinforce a sense of winning at all costs, even if it comes at the expense of the nation. This psychological need to feel superior to the outgroup and believe that their group is right has resulted in more competition, fewer compromises, and could lead to a frightful despotism. Political affiliation is now closely tied to social identity, leading to increased political activity based not on policy goals but on knee-jerk identity defense responses. Even when opportunities arise for compromise on policies that benefit everyone, partisans will ignore it if it doesn't make them look like winners. This trend is alarming, as partisanship could override loyalty to one's nation. The impact of social identity on political polarization. Prejudice, anger, and activism are increasing, not over policy differences, but due to social identity. Americans base much of their political decision-making on partisan cues and become less interested in policies once they decide how they feel about their party. Social distance bias was shown to increase as partisans become more socially sorted, resulting in intransigent and more active governing. A socially sorted partisan with moderate policy opinions shows less tolerance for opposing political opinions than a cross-cutting partisan with strong policy opinions. This intolerance is due to motivated reasoning, which amplifies in socially homogeneous settings. The need for social identity breeds a degree of intolerance, even on moderate policy positions that partisanship alone cannot. It is essential to recognize the impact of social identity on political polarization to mitigate increasing levels of prejudice and anger in society. The Anger-Partisanship Cycle. American voters are becoming angrier and more partisan, leading to entrenched prejudices and increasing hostility. Anger drives action but impedes judgment, causing a cycle that reinforces itself. Data over the last 4 decades shows this trend, with rising anger levels correlating to angrier politics. This has led to a 12% increase in voter satisfaction with the two main parties since 1980. Donald J. Trump's rise to power was driven by anger rather than strong policies or an ideological stance. The power of group identity in American activism. American activism is fueled by group identity more than individual issue intensity. Negative emotions also play a significant role in spurring political action. Many perceive American society as apathetic and disengaged. However, recent activism suggests that this is not quite the case. Partisans are significantly more activist than the general population. Those who care tend to care a lot. The problem is that if those who do not care as much do not engage, fewer people hold more power. Civic engagement was previously the driving force behind activism, but social connections now play a more significant role in enhancing political engagement. Group identity amplifies political engagement far more than issue intensity. People are more likely to engage in activism when they identify strongly with a particular group label. This engagement often comes from negative views of the opposing party. As long as a social divide persists between the parties, the electorate will continue to care more about their self-interest than the interest of the nation. Abortion is a hot-button topic in the USA, with people identifying as pro-life or pro-choice 24% more likely to engage in political activism. Negative emotions, especially in response to perceived threats, spur more action. While winning feels good and drives further engagement, it is negative emotions that fuel a significant portion of political activism. Unfortunately, this has led to issues losing their relevance as political action becomes more about emotional expression than reasoned debate. Bridging the American political divide. In order to reduce the current state of partisan prejudice in American politics, several tactics can be employed. First and foremost, increasing ordinary contact between partisans of both parties is essential, in order to establish situations where friendship is possible. Secondly, the parties can agree to use respectful language and remove pejorative labels, adhering to social norms that guide their discourse about each other. Thirdly, the parties can prioritize superordinate goals that require bipartisan cooperation. Lastly, raising the self-esteem of voters who feel disenfranchised can significantly reduce their inclination to cling to extreme solutions. Unfortunately, the present political climate is not favorable to pursuing these tactics. However, rifts within political parties could ease the tension among voters. The Republicans' future is in jeopardy because the country is growing more diverse, and their base is shrinking. Trump's presidency is the result of years of social sorting among the American electorate. The future of the nation depends on reducing social polarization so that Americans can focus on their shared goals, not devolve into warring factions bent on destroying one another.
Uncivil Agreement sheds light on the magnitude of the social divide. that has emerged as the driving force behind increased political partisanship and polarization in America, demonstrating its adverse effects on governance. Mason exposes how, despite policy agreement, people still hold strong divides based on their party affiliations. Crucially, the book calls attention to the potential challenges that emerge when an entire nation succumbs to divisive politics, and ultimately, stresses on the importance of reducing social polarization in order to focus on shared goals and a united future.